Now, how many of you all have kids? No, raise your hands. It's okay. You're admitting to the world that you've had sex at least once in your life, okay? You have kids. Yeah, so we all know. We all know about you. We all know about you now. You're so naughty. You've got kids. I think you can learn a lot from your kids because they're so honest. They're so honest. I took my son to a toy store. I mean, anytime we go to a toy store, we always have a budget, a $5 toy budget. We have a $5 toy budget because I don't want him to learn how to become an impulse spender like his dad, right? A $5 budget. And so he's learning how to negotiate. And it's really sweet. I'm teaching him to look people in the eye, shake their hand. And there are these two ladies at the counter at the toy store. Well, if you want to know what toy you want, if you want to know if they have the Lightning McQueen in the blue, you need to ask them if they have that. And he felt really nervous. And you forget how tall every grown-up is in the world when you're that age. And I said, Daxon, why don't you want to talk to them? And he says, Daddy, I don't feel comfortable talking to people that I just don't feel comfortable being around. And the two ladies are like right there. And I'm like, well, I just think he needs a nap or something. You know, he didn't really mean that. You know, shh, 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 shh. But kids are so brutally honest. And they teach us so much because they're going to do what they're going to do. We can try to make them, but when you want them to go to the wall, when you want them to go forward, you got to find out what's that intrinsic energy that's going to guide them to the next step, just like your prospects. Now, this is a second cardinal rule that really has helped me out in my own practice, my own consulting, is that people are predictable and consistent. They're predictable and consistent. And you guys can anticipate this when you're learning how to deal with people. You guys have a prospect that schedules a meeting with you. You ever had a no-show? Yeah? You try to reschedule, what happens? They're not going to show again, right? You leave a message, oh yeah, I'm sure, I'm still interested. I mean, they're predictable and consistent. If they're going to be a certain way in the beginning, they're going to be a certain way in the end. I had this happen with a candidate once. I was recruiting for him, and I had his resume, and I presented him to a client. And the interview was going to take place. And the candidate didn't show up. And I finally found out why. I said, what happened? He said, well, the night before the interview, my ex-wife's boyfriend said some things to me in the mall. And I turned around and I hit him and I'd been arrested. But I got out of jail. I can reschedule. I'm like, oh, great. So I told my client that. And my client said, well, okay, if my ex-wife's boyfriend said that to me, I'd hit him too. Sounds like a good guy. I'm like, whatever, you know? So we scheduled the second interview. And later that afternoon, I get a call from my client asking me what? Where's the candidate? I'm like, I don't know. And I tried to reach him, and for weeks I never heard back, so I just let him go. Well, 2 years later, a client of mine in Seattle had the same search for the same type of person. And I open up the folder of previous searches, positions I recruited for, and I see the candidate's resume. I'm thinking, this guy would be great. Do you think I called him, though? I called him. I said, why not? People change, right? I called him. I said, you want to go to Seattle? He says, my sister lives there. I said, that's great. He's going to be there for an interview. And I get a call from my client asking me, where's the candidate? So I called the candidate. He's right at his desk. I'm like, what happened? Oh, I thought it was next Monday. Oh, you thought it was next Monday. You ever get the answer from a prospect and you know that something's up, but it's the right answer, but you know deep down in your gut this ain't going anywhere, but you kind of want to go with it because the deal gods might be smiling on you that day? And so I said, okay, let's schedule it later. So it's going to be Thursday morning. He's going to fly there Wednesday afternoon, and the candidate calls me on the way to the airport. And it's always good when a candidate calls me on the way to the interview, but not when they're drunk. You know, that's always bad. So I said, okay, now I know what's really going on. I said, okay, which hotel are you going to be at? I'm going to call you at 6 a.m. I'm going to be your wake-up call. And make sure you take a cab to the airport. And so I called the hotel, asked for my candidate. What do you think the hotel operator told me? Didn't check in. People are predictable and they're consistent. So we don't look at what they're telling us. Oh, yes, I'm interested, but I'm going to no-show the appointment. Yes, I'm interested, and I told you I'd get this information to you, but I didn't follow through on that. We look at their actions to be able to predict the patterns of human behavior. The same thing if you play poker. How many of you guys play poker? You look at the betting patterns and the betting behaviors of everybody around you. When that changes, you know that something's up. So 2 years later, I had a client of mine in Austin, Texas, looking for the same person. I go to the old files, and I see the candidate's resume there. You think I called him? How many of you think I called him? Yeah, I called him. Because people change. I believe people can change. So I called him. You want to go to Austin? He says, my brother lives in Austin. That's great. Scheduled the interview. Later that day, my client in Austin, Texas called me. And he said, son, the The candidate didn't show. Well, let me call the candidate. No, son, listen. I've been doing this for 35 years, and I've learned that people are predictable and consistent. No, I can call. No, son, listen, if you're trying to talk me into this, I really don't want to do business with you. And that was a very hard lesson.